Good evening and welcome to the RO Sports Show Rundown, otherwise known as the Ross Rundown, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. I'm your host, Matt Harrelson, alongside with me, Brand Fall and Jeremy McKenzie. This is, of course, your one-stop, quick-hit sports show, so let's start the proverbial clock. And let's talk about them Panthers, because they are still free-falling, just like the song. Ended up losing 12-9 in a barn burner against the Saints on Monday Night Football. So what is going on? I ask you this every week, Brand. What's going on in Charlotte?
I don't know, man. I mean, Panther fans may never want to see me on here again, because they are every week I've been on, they've gotten beat. Of course, no matter who's on, they get beat here. Like 6 in a row now. They just seemingly cannot figure out a way to finish a ball game. I mean, that game was very winnable the other night.
Absolutely.
Very winnable.
Yeah, I mean, and Jeremy, you can speak to this. When you're the Panthers and you're able to hold Drew Brees and that Saints offense to 12 points, you got to be able to win that game, right?
Yes, for us, we're not consistent and disciplined on defense. I mean, with DJ Moore fumbling that ball and Cam Newton threw that pick to Eli Apple before halftime, I think those are the two key plays that killed this momentum change for us anyway, and we just couldn't get the job done.
So let's talk about Cam, because it seems like he's obviously been playing with a shoulder injury, and now it sounds like the Panthers are going to at least shut him down for this week's game. What's his name? Taylor Henneke is going to start in his place, and it sounds like there's a chance that they just may shut Cam down for the rest of the year. Is this the wise thing to do, or should he try to tough this out?
Well, I think so. I mean, there's obviously something there. I mean, if you watch the balls he was throwing the other night, I mean, his problem in the past has always been overthrowing receivers, and he was just having balls just die at the receiver's feet. If he's truly that hurt and been trying to play through it, I don't see why you certainly the wise move was certainly to not play him this week. And then Ron Rivera, I think, said if there was an outside chance they could get in the playoffs, they may revisit it next week. So I think it's wise.
And talking about Cam, you mentioned here he was throwing some balls at some of their feet. Defenses know that because Cam's shoulder's hurting, he's not going to beat anybody with the long balls. So isn't that hurting the Panthers?
Yeah, I think it is, especially when you got Curtis Samuel and DJ Moore, your speedy receivers out there, and I know they want to make plays, but due to the inconsistency of Cam, they're not able to make those catches.
And then, Jeremy, on the flip side, on the defense, though, the defense stepped up. They played well, right?
Yeah.
I mean, again, to hold the Saints to only 12 points, that's kind of a victory in itself,
Yeah,
right?
the defense held its own. I mean, the pick with James Bradbury and Dante Jackson with that pick, too. I mean, we actually get to see his NFL speed for sure. And I mean, he got that pick too. I think he was long gone.
Now, I know, Jeremy, you probably won't want to admit this, so I ask you, Brand. Season's over for Carolina, right?
Oh, I think so, without a doubt.
Right.
I mean, I think they're done. I mean, even if they win out, I mean, 8-8. I mean, a lot of things have to go right in addition to them winning out.
Yeah. You agree?
I think we are eliminated from playoff contention. I think we just need to go ahead and rebuild for next year.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's if you're gonna shut Cam down, then shut him down, and just be done with it for this year. I agree with that. All right, let's start over and move to the Redskins. So they actually were free falling, much like the Panthers were. Were able to pick up a victory over the Jacksonville Jaguars in Jacksonville, 16-13. So the Redskins back up to 500. They're now 7-7. But again, something that I've preached about all year long, it just seems like we're just going to stick around 500, and that's exactly where we are. So is this just more of the same, just, one step forward, one step back?
Well, I said last week I thought they were done, and I still feel that way. I don't even remember who they have the next 2 weeks, but they got a tall order to win. Josh Johnson played well enough to win. He didn't cost them the game. He managed the game well, but the only thing they have going for them is that 8-8 could win this division.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing is Josh Johnson, 16-25, 151 yards and 1 touchdown. Not a terrible game by any means, but he's not the answer. He's not a franchise quarterback. So I agree with you. I think that look, somehow maybe we win the next 2 games. We finish 9-7. Maybe that sniffs the playoffs. Of course, we'll have to wait and see what Dallas does moving forward, and the Eagles.
Philadelphia's right there too.
Yeah, Philly creeping up anyway.
Yeah, but I don't know. I just kind of feel like at this point Washington may have already missed the boat, and obviously having that Alex Smith injury did not help things whatsoever. So, Let's move forward. Sticking with the NFL rather, and let's talk about some NFL coaches that are on the hot seat. We see this every year.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
It comes with the territory, and it's all about what have you done for me lately.
Yep.
So I'm gonna throw some names for some coaches on some teams here, and I want you to tell me whether they're on the hot seat, whether they need to be looking for another job. Arizona Cardinals head coach and former Panthers coach Steve Wilks.
I'm going to say he shouldn't be on the hot seat because he's a rookie head coach. I think this is going to be a scenario where the ownership of the Arizona Cardinals need to give him another chance.
All right.
Yeah, I don't think he's on the hot seat. I think his grace period will be a little bit bigger than that 1 year.
Okay. Now, somebody who has a little bit more experience, but again, it's what have you done for me lately? And we talked about this last week. Ron Rivera. Is he on the hot seat?
Really, right now he is, but I think, like I said this before, it's going to be a scenario where I think they're going to give him another year to redeem himself, and I think if he don't get us into the playoffs, what not have you, I think David Tipper's going to show him the pink slip.
All right.
I think he gets another year for sure. I do.
Okay. Moving forward to the Redskins, Jay Gruden, is he on the hot seat?
He could be. I mean, he's got the built-in excuse this year.
Yeah, true.
With Alex Smith getting hurt, but they have been right around 500 since he took the job.
Exactly.
So I don't know how many more years Daniel Snyder's been shockingly patiently with him, and he's doesn't have a great history of being patient with head coaches. And so I'm surprised he's stuck with him this long, honestly.
All right. And talking about Ron Rivera, a guy that's been with this team for a while, perhaps the longest tenured or one of the longest tenured Cincinnati Bengals coach Marvin Lewis. Is he on the hot seat?
I think it's going to be a scenario where Mike Brown, the owner of the Bengals, they got a good relationship with Marvin Lewis. It's going to be very shocking if they let him go, but I think he'll probably stay another year.
It seems like people talk about this every year.
They do.
Marvin Lewis. Every year, Marvin Lewis's name seems to come up as being on the hot seat, and every year we talk about another year. Eventually, the owner does love Marvin Lewis.
Yep.
He is a good football coach, but can't seem to find a way to get over the hump. I wouldn't be surprised to see him go.
I wouldn't be surprised to see him go either because it is what have you done for me lately. But I also feel like the Bengals would be hard pressed to find a better, more consistent coach because look at and see the type of teams that Marvin Lewis has been successful with. All of them, for the most part, have had Andy Dalton as your quarterback.
Yeah, and Carson Palmer.
And he's not terrible, but they're not world beater quarterbacks. And he's gone to the playoffs a few times with some mediocre teams.
Yep.
Also in that same division, the Baltimore Ravens, John Harbaugh. We talk about his brother all the time. Was John on the hot seat?
For me, I don't think so because he's in playoff contention right now, and I think this season was a make it break it for him, and I think he'll retain his job.
All right.
I think a lot of it depends on what he does with the quarterback situation. I think, in my opinion, he needs to move on from Flacco.
Okay, and we're going to talk about that
pretty much.
here in just a little bit. And then finally, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Dirk Cotter, should he be on the hot seat losing his gig?
Yes. Yes, I believe so because, for Tampa Bay, the talent you got around you, and if you can't seem to compete in this division with New Orleans, Carolina, and Atlanta, and it seems like you can't get a winning record, I think it's going to come down to where the owner of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, pink slip.
All right.
I think he's on the hot seat.
I agree.
Without a doubt.
Buccaneers, I don't know if they need to go more of a defensive route. Cotter may be a defensive-minded coach, but Tampa Bay's got a good offense, but their defense has been terrible.
Got all that talent but can't win.
Yeah. Well, easy there. Because their record is 5-9, so they're not much further behind y'all.
Yeah.
All right, let's move to the Major League Baseball hot stove, and we're going to hit these real quick. So, again, it's been kind of slow. We're still waiting on Manny Machado, Bryce Harper, the big dogs to sign. We haven't seen that yet, but that doesn't mean stuff's not happening. So, J.A. Happ and the New York Yankees agreed on a 2-year deal. I think this is a good deal.
I do. He pitched really well for the Yankees after the trade this past year. I think his ERA was under 3.
It was.
And maybe even won double-digit games in his short time with the Yankees. I think it's a good move for them.
Yeah, I know he's getting up there. He's in his mid to late 30s, somewhere in there. But he's a left-hander, and I think that makes
left-handers seem to pitch
at
like 102.
Exactly. If you're a left-handed pitcher, there's always going to be a job for you. The Astros, getting stronger. They signed former Indian Michael Brantley to a 2-year, $32 million deal. Now, I think this is a great sign and just extends that depth that the Astros have in that lineup.
Love it. I'd love that move. I think he was on the Braves' radar too.
Yeah.
Of course, a lot of people seem to be on the Braves' radar that they
Everybody
don't
is,
sign.
yeah.
And then, so I don't know what they're going in outfield direction now.
So we've talked about with the Braves about how busy the NL East has been this year so far. That's continuing, especially in New York.
Yeah.
So the Mets, first of all, signed catcher Wilson Ramos to a 2-year deal. To me, I think this is very important because this makes the Mets a lot better than they were before they signed him. Now, is he JT Realmuto? I don't think so, but Ramos is a really good catcher in his own
solid.
right. So I think that makes the Mets better. Then, speaking of Realmuto, I also read that the Mets rejected a Realmuto trade that would have had them giving up Noah Syndergaard.
And I think that was smart on that. Syndergaard's
I
a
agree.
stud. I mean, they addressed the catcher need.
Yeah.
And they kept Syndergaard.
Yeah.
I mean, that's good general managing, in my opinion.
Yeah, because we've heard these astronomical prices that the Marlins have put forth for Realmuto. And I already know how that phone call went. They said, are you guys interested? Yes. Well, we'll take Noah Syndergaard. Click.
Not.
We'll sign Wilson Ramos instead. And that's exactly what happened.
right.
So, speaking of the Astros, they are also interested in DH Nelson Cruz, who's also getting up there, but is still a 35, 40 home run threat every year.
He can still hit. And, you know, if you're in the American League, the thing about you, if you can still get some pop, they'll take a 220 average if you can give them 35 bombs.
Yeah.
And so I'm not surprised at that.
Yeah, one of the guys that we talk about all the time because he's on his team, Scott Emerson, the A's, is Chris Davis, another guy that can pop 40 home runs. Now, he might bat 220, 230, but in this age where it's just, you know, everything's on
an uppercut swing. Yep.
That's what plays. Talking about Realmuto, because he's everywhere until he
Yep.
gets moved. That's what we're going to be talking about. And the Braves have finally said they're shutting down their
Yep.
talk on him.
So the asking price just must be unreal. I mean, because the Braves, it seems like everybody's was on the table 2 weeks ago. Arte's name was mentioned in trades. Acuna, of course, they shut that down.
Yeah.
Swanson, I mean, they must be asking for like a huge package from the Braves.
Well, I found out what happened with this, why they shut it down. Same thing when I was talking about with the Mets. They called and said, Braves, are y'all interested in Realmuto? Well, yeah. All right, we want Ozzy Albies.
Yeah.
Click.
Bye.
So that's what happened with that. Although, how much of this is smoke and mirrors? Because we see this all the time when it comes to negotiating, right? Where a team will say, we're not interested anymore, and then they end up signing the guy. You know?
Yeah, I don't believe for a minute that the Braves are not still interested in him. They're just not going to give up what is being asked right now.
It's almost a game of chicken.
That's
if you
right.
will.
It is.
And then finally, before we move on, the Milwaukee Brewers are pursuing former Oakland Athletic
That's right.
Jed Lowry for their second base position. Now, I think Jed Lowry is a great player, had a great year for Oakland. Personally, just because I'm a big Scott fan, I'd like to see him go back to Oakland. But I think he'd be a good fit in Milwaukee as well.
The Brewers were close this past year.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good move for him. He's got some pop in his bat. I don't know what his average was, but he hit 20-something bombs and almost 100 RBIs or 100 RBIs.
He was up, I think he might have been batting over 300.
So, I mean, he's got some pop in his bat. I mean, I like him.
He was an all-star last year for sure. All right, so let's start the clock over. Let's go to our big impacts of the week. Of course, brought to you by Richmond Community College, whose motto is local college, big impact. Jeremy, who you got for big impact this week?
I want to say congratulations to the LA Chargers defensive end in Richmond County Zone, Melvin Ingram, for making his second consecutive Pro Bowl appearance.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's phenomenal. Can't say enough about the success that this guy's had coming from Richmond County, defying the odds, if you will, because a lot of guys can get stuck in the mundane day-to-day things of playing football at a high school level. He was able to go to South Carolina and excel there, stay out of trouble, go into the NFL, excel there. Now he's a Pro Bowler. Nothing but success.
Great story.
Absolutely.
Great story. Good pick.
Absolutely. Congratulations to him. Yeah. Big impact this week. Who you got?
I got the Richmond Raiders. I know we talk about them every week, but it's probably the last time. But it was just announced this week that Brian Till was Coach of the Year.
Yep.
And the Raiders put 18 players at all conference. That is awesome.
Yeah,
awesome. 18 players.
I was thinking about that, and I was like, you can only have 22 players on
That's right.
starting offense and defense.
That's right.
So that's literally the majority of the team. And then I'm going to keep mine on the local level as well. My big impact, we kind of mentioned it on the Ross Raider wrap-up yesterday, but Raiders wrestling coach Earl Nicholson took his team up to NC State to let them watch, at the time, number 7 NC State wrestling, by the way, take on number 11 Nebraska. Nebraska, always known as a great wrestling school. And I think that was wonderful for him to do that, for them to get that experience on the collegiate level.
Yeah.
I think that'll pay dividends.
I bet
down
those
the
kids
line.
love that trip too. I mean, what a great
yeah,
bonding
oh, yeah.
experience.
It is, and
Yeah.
you know, I'm a huge Tar Heel fan, but NC State's a beautiful campus.
Yes,
on
it is.
top of
Oh,
that,
yes,
so.
it is.
Oh yes.
All right, guys, let's finish up the same way we always do. Let's start with our love it or hate it. So let's start with college football. So Jake Fromm took over at Georgia a couple years ago, actually took over from Jake Eason, who was also a freshman. Well, in the meantime, Georgia brought in the number one high school quarterback recruit, in Justin Fields. He's got nowhere to play. He says he's going to transfer. So Fields transferring, love it or hate it.
I hate it. I mean, I know we talk about it. We've talked about this on the show the brief time I've been on here about players should, you know, it's their lives.
Right.
But give it a chance. I mean, he's been there 1 year.
Yeah,
and,
1 year.
Isn't he just finished his freshman year?
Yeah, he did.
Then he did.
And they integrated him a little
Yeah,
bit.
it's not like he
into
didn't
some of
play.
the plays. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you think? Love it or hate it?
I'm gonna say hate it because you're just sitting on the bench for nothing, and I think you want to transfer, get a better opportunity to play somewhere else. Go for it.
Now, a team that I've seen pop up is Ohio State. And I would say love it if that's where he ends up, because Dwayne Haskins is probably going to go pro, which means there'll be an open spot there for him. And we know Fields has the talent. I mean, he was number one recruit coming out of high school. So,
Matt Brown's got an opening.
yeah, yes, he does. You're absolutely right. And, the Tar Heels, just like Kelly Bryant, when he peeled off of Clemson, they should at least
I
take
could
a look
start
at
at
this
quarterback
guy.
at UNC right now, I believe.
Well, you're right. Unfortunately, you are correct. Let's move forward. So there was an LA Rams player that got caught on video angrily confronting a fan after a game, kind of in the stands, cussing this guy out. Love it or hate it?
I'm gonna say hate it because you could get fined for that.
Yeah.
And that's just a bad look for the NFL.
Yeah.
I hate it. That's just a bad look, man. Fans are idiots sometimes. I mean, you add fans and the passion for the sports and add some alcohol, they can be dummies sometimes. But man, you just gotta walk away.
You do have to walk away. You have to understand that heckling is part of the territory.
Yeah.
However, you don't know what was said to
You
the
don't.
player.
You don't.
I mean, there are some things that could be said that could be considered crossing the line. But again, you also have to be able to be the bigger person, so to speak, and have restraint and not, confront a fan, because this just happened to pop up on my timeline the other day. Was the Malice in the Palace between the Pacers and the Pistons.
Yeah, I remember that.
And obviously, nobody ever wants to see players go up into the stands and that kind of chaos ensue, literally. So obviously, that
That's why I
didn't
put Ron
happen.
Artest on the map.
Yeah, that didn't happen here, but you never know. Like you said, when you mix alcohol and you mix the validity of it, somebody that's on a team that you hate, you never know. So you have to be careful with that. CC Sabathia will still get a $500,000 bonus. Now, this is significant because last year he was due that bonus, but he had to pitch a certain amount of innings. Well, his final game, he got thrown out of the game and didn't make that limit by like 2 innings.
Yeah.
So the Yankees gave him the $500,000 anyway. Love it or hate it.
I love it. Sabathia has been around a long time now. Sabathia was arguing balls and strikes, I think it was. I think that's what the argument was about in the last game where he got tossed. I remember this story because I was following the baseball season so closely last year. But, that's a class move by the Yankees, which I'm a Yankee basher sometimes. That's a surprisingly class move.
All right.
I'm a Yankees fan, die hard, and I would love it. Take care of my man. He's a franchise.
Chocolate chip
Yeah,
Sabathia.
this will probably be CC's last year, or at least last couple of years. I mean, I don't have a problem with this. The Yankees, $500,000 to them is pocket change.
$5.
Yeah, so I mean, if they want to pay the guy, pay the guy. Moving forward, James Harden from the Houston Rockets says he doesn't deny he got away with a travel the other day.
You
Love it or hate
think?
it.
You think? Love it. Love the fact that he at least I saw today where he said, what do you want me to do? Tell him myself?
Exactly,
I mean,
yeah.
come
You
on,
mean
it's
tell
not
him
his fault. I mean, the official's going to give it to him, take it.
Right.
But I do love what he said. That's
Okay.
cool.
I love it.
I love it too. I mean, it seems like players are allowed to get away with more and more these days. The refs kind of look the other way when it comes to this, when it comes to carrying the ball over. You see these guys now, they'll take what looks like 3 or 4 of these Euro step things. But, James Harden's like, look, if you're not going to call it on me, we're going to continue to push that envelope, and I don't blame them.
He took like 2 jumps and hops backwards. It was awesome.
But again, they're not going to start snitching on themselves.
No.
So. Moving forward, Sean Payton and Drew Brees against the Panthers picked up their 117th regular season win together. Love it or hate it?
Hate it because Sean Payton should be in Dallas.
Okay.
I'm gonna say it both ways because they beat us. I hate that, but congratulations for both of them for that win.
I'm going to say love it because you only see this kind of combination very rarely. Belichick, Brady, McCarthy, Rodgers is up there. Obviously, Peyton and Breeze. I'm not even sure. Elway,
and Mike Shanahan.
And Shanahan.
Yeah,
I'm sure there may be
Tony Dungy,
maybe Walsh and Montana. I mean, not many people get it.
Not many people get up there and win that many together.
Yeah.
So that's obviously a special celebration there. So congratulations to Peyton and Drew Brees.
Yeah, I was kidding. Congrats.
Oh yeah, Brees obviously first ballot Hall of Famer.
Oh,
Sean
yeah.
Payton as well.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
All right. Now, talking about your boy Cam Newton, he and Eric Reed made some statements with their cleats this week. Did you see this?
I didn't get a chance to read it, but go ahead.
So, yeah, Cam Newton and Eric Reed, you know how nowadays you can pretty much they have different days where you can put different messages on your cleats. So, Cam Newton and Eric Reed kind of went a little political with theirs with the whole taking a knee for the national anthem. So, with that aspect, love it or hate it.
Free speech. I mean, I hate it personally, but I mean, and here's the thing: I was for the Panthers signing Eric Reed. You can debate whether he's helped them win any games or not because nobody seems to be able to help him win, although it's not on him. But it just seems to be where a little bit about making it about yourself, but you know, whatever. It's free speech.
Okay. Love it or hate it.
I'm going to hate this for one because, like Brad said, it was a big thing for Carolina to sign Eric Reed, but it's free speech. You can express the way you want to.
All right, I agree with you 100%. You should be able to put whatever you want on there. But again, when you do stuff like this, you also have to be able to accept the consequences, any kind of negative press that comes with it. Of course, right now, perhaps the Panthers want that just take away from the fact that they've lost 6 games
So let's talk about anything other than 6-game losing streak.
All right, 3 more here, guys, and they're all dealing with football. So Aaron Rodgers, his record streak without a pick finally ended at 402 pass attempts. Love it or hate it?
Love it. Aaron Rodgers all-time great, man. I'm not a huge Packers or Rodgers fan, but Rodgers all-time. Man, that's an amazing accomplishment.
Right?
Love it.
I love it too. Aaron Rodgers, again, already a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yes.
402 pass attempts without a pick.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It truly is.
Yes.
It's really, really hard to do. I can't imagine going through one game, much less, what is that the equivalent of? Like a whole season almost.
I mean, that's 400 pass attempts could be a whole year, probably.
Absolutely. So congratulations to him. Even though it ended, I'm sure he'll probably just start another streak.
Yep.
So 2 more here. Kayvon Thibodeau, the number 1 recruit coming out of high school, has chosen to go to Oregon. Love it or hate it?
I love it. Oregon's getting a big-time recruit there. He's a defensive end with some speed.
Yeah.
Good signing for Oregon. Good for them.
All right.
Love it. Good for Oregon to shape that defense up.
Usually, Oregon's known for getting top offensive recruits.
Yes.
Offensive recruits.
Yep.
So it's really cool to see them get the top defensive guy. It kind of surprised me, though. I know Oregon's been a perennially good football team when Chip Kelly was there.
Yeah.
Not so much since he's left, although Taggart was there, then he left. Now Cristobal's there. So maybe they're going to continue that, and Oregon will be in the national championship hunt again.
Who knows?
And then finally, the Chicago Bears, Charles Leno, and I'll be quite honest, I don't know who this is on the team, but he asked his girlfriend to marry him after their victory, and she said yes. Love it or hate it?
Love it. Congratulations.
Love it. Congratulations.
Yeah, ditto to that. Congratulations to Mr. Leno and his future wife. I saw the video on this. I bet that was really cool to be able to propose, especially after winning. You see this quite often with athletes. Matter of fact, I think the last 2 World Series, we've had players on the winning teams propose to their girlfriends right after the game in the stands. So
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think stuff like that is very cool. So, all right, guys, that's going to do it for this week's edition of the Ross Rundown. Of course, you can catch this every week, Friday nights at 5:30 across all of the Richmond Observer's platforms. Jeremy McKenzie, Brand Fall, I'm Matt Nelson. We'll see you right back here next week for another edition of the Ross Rundown.